Ellison.
Sure.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Great to be here.
Good to be here as well. We're in London, a little Infosec Europe 2026 action, and the floor is buzzing, the event's buzzing, all trying to, I think, what's the theme? Protect business, being cyber safe from a business perspective, and a lot of organizations are trying to be innovative and push the boundaries on what they can accomplish. Bad actors are doing the same, and the poor analysts in the SOC trying to figure out what to do with all that data, or the lack of data in some cases, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's regulations pushing the business to do things as well. And security team needs to have the information to prove that they're following the NIST and DORA and those types of frameworks and regulations. So before we get into what Corelight does in relation to what's happening here this week, maybe a few words about your role at Corelight, and maybe an elevator pitch too, so folks know who the company does.
Yeah, absolutely, that'd be great. I'm Matt Ellison. I look after the sales engineering team for EMEA. So I've been a sales engineer for my entire, pretty much, IT life, so that's a good few decades now. Absolutely love it. But at Corelight, we have for me, a fantastic solution, a really great product. I love the moral ambition behind it. We're probably one of the things I'm most proud of is we're the custodians of Zeek, the open source NDR solution. A fantastic tool that's available for use by anybody, and it's a big basis of the Corelight solution. But we add a lot of other stuff there that makes Corelight commercially differentiated. But ultimately, the simplest way to look at things is we're a tool that looks at all of your network traffic and gives you unique insights into what's actually flowing across the network. So if you think about some of the attacks there's been recently, the kind of the typhoon attacks, great examples of attacks that have explicitly avoided EDR, that have staged themselves from hardware devices, because EDR is phenomenal. So the attackers now are really having to find ways to work around that. But when you're seeing all of the network traffic that flows backwards and forwards, it gives you really unique insights into what's happening and what that traffic is and where it's going. And Corelight's uniquely positioned to provide that for customers.
Yeah. And I have to say that, system engineers, sales engineers, you guys, in my opinion, have probably one of the best jobs.
Yeah.
And you sit in the environments where this stuff has to work. So you're tuning the dials and looking at the way it's configured, mapping it to the environment and the way the business runs, and really pulling all that together. So I'm curious to know what your team and what you see with respect to data that's there, hard to make sense of it, data that's missing, not knowing what's missing so you can make the right decisions. What's your view of the environment at the moment for most organizations?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that the thing that's never changed for me as a sales engineer is, these SOC teams, those security operations centers, it's a constant battle. As fast as you kind of improve things, as fast as you get a new tool, there's something new in terms of the attackers that comes at you. And if I think of the customers that we're talking to and we're dealing with, what they're looking for is a combination of things. First of all, you hit the nail on the head. It's that complete visibility. When you know that you're not seeing everything, and again, to reiterate on the typhoon attacks, just impossible to see using your existing EDR solutions. So that's an example of something that gives teams a realization that actually I might not know everything that's going on in my environment. So that's a big thing, complete visibility. And then over and above that, it's how do I kind of work with the detections that I'm getting? I've got a tool, it's giving me a detection. Where do I go with that? How do I investigate it? What's the actual root cause that I need to address? Great, a machine got infected, but what does that mean to me in real terms? Are other machines going to be infected? What was the vector for that infection?
Right.
We find that it's insights, data, visibility. And then of course the other thing is that these are SOC teams that are dealing with just an alert overload. There's one of the things that we see a lot of is almost a fear of missing something.
Right.
So there's that tendency to overstate all of the detections, to have so many detections turn on, what I call kind of just in case detection.
Right.
What if that happened? So yeah, customers are struggling with those volume of alerts. How do they tune? How do they really make things manageable for the SOC analysts? So yeah.
The FOMO SOC. FOMO in the SOC. Never thought of fear of missing out in the SOC. No, but I think it's interesting because a lot of times, and how do you know? You build a program, you build your policies, you build your controls, you build your detections, you look at how you're managing your alerts, your team comes together and does some hunting. How do you know that that's enough?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's that one piece that you're not familiar with. So how does your team kind of help surface some of those things that organizations might feel we have a pretty decent coverage, but we don't know how or where to move next?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things for me. One of the things for sure is there's a sense of, especially in today's world with AI and all the rest of it, a sense that you can kind of deploy a solution, and that solution is going to kind of work out what's good, what's bad, and kind of automatically do it for you. And I think the challenge there can sometimes be, okay, as I mentioned earlier, you've got this detection. How do I really prove that it's something that says it is, or how do I prove that it's benign? So that's definitely one issue. I think that how we work with helping customers address those areas, so the complete visibility, the dealing with the volume of alerts, there's a few things. I've done a presentation a number of times called "When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a Threat Hunter." And it's a starting point for organizations that, there's a lot of talk about, oh yeah, we should do threat hunting.
Right.
And you hear these stories about, we talk about some of the vendors that use Zeek, the open source version, and they're big vendors, and they can afford to stick with the open source version because they've got huge teams. They don't need those extra insights. And they build them themselves and actually often release them to the open source community, which is fantastic. But for normal people, how do they do that kind of threat hunting? What does that actually mean in the real world? And one of the responses we always get back is, I just don't have time. How do I threat hunt? What does that mean? So often the first thing we talk about is showing customers what that means. So one of the big things there is a black box can't really tell you very much. Something goes in, something comes out. We have a very open approach. So all of the data that led to the conclusion we're presenting with, it's all there. So you can fully investigate it. You can understand what it is. The other thing I always say to people is, you know your network best. You know the kind of stuff that shouldn't be happening. You know that machine shouldn't be talking to that machine. You know how things hang together and how stuff is.
Right.
And that's a huge, valuable piece of information that you can't necessarily just download into a closed solution. It's insights that only you contain. So when you have those insights, when you have a tool that's open and allows you to follow a flow, then that starts to become really valuable to customers.
Yeah.
So for me at least, and for the way I kind of present Corelight to customers, those are the benefits. We give you all of that rich information, we give you that visibility, combine that with your unique positioning and understanding of your organization and your networks, and that can make for a really powerful combination where you're starting to define how you work with the data. You're not just allowing a whole bunch of detections to dictate what you go into every day.
Yeah. Which is key for the folks in the SOC to be able to accomplish what their objectives are. Yeah. Because they're being measured and paid and compensated and bonused on their results.
Yeah.
The business up a level has its own objectives, right? And it may or may not care about what's happening in the SOC, but they do care about things that they're required to do, like NIS2 and DORA and other regulations that specific to Europe, UK, others around the world if you're a global organization. How do those change how organizations should look at their SOC, and how does the Corelight team help the organizations kind of achieve what they need to with those frameworks and regulations?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, obviously things like DORA are relatively new. We're just starting to get to grips with that. But I think you can go back a long way, even just to GDPR, things like that. They're still really valid and still a really good base set of frameworks. NIST 2, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a number of things that we're doing with Corelight. Again, I think part of it is understanding how it can help an organization. I think it's very easy sometimes for organizations to, and especially SOC teams, when there's this kind of reliance on or a need to fulfill something to provide the answers to those kind of frameworks and get those tick boxes from the auditors. And yeah, we need to have the tools in place to be able to do that. But I think from our point of view, just having a tool that you've turned on and sits there and you never look at it, but the auditor comes in and says, "Oh, are you addressing these requirements?" And you go, "Yes, sir, we absolutely are," or "Yes, ma'am, we absolutely are," and nobody's looking at it. That's no value. It's a cost that provides nothing. So again, what we're really trying to do with Corelight is show how the tool not only helps you answer a lot of these questions. So, for instance, one of the things we're introducing in our next release at the end of the month is asset classification. So the ability to actually classify what the thing is on your network. Is it Windows? Is it Mac? Is it Android? Is it iOS? Getting all of those insights, and not just that, but giving you again that open data. Here's the explanation of why. Here's the information we pulled from there. So, those are the kind of things that help with the various different aspects. I mean, it's just one small aspect, of course, but that's really what we're trying to do, is make them usable, functional components that customers are using day to day. And it's not just a box that sits in the corner.
And then supports the business objectives. What are some stories or use cases you can share that kind of point to, we operated like this, and we found out that with the help from your team, we needed to gain more insight, have more context, whatever it was, and because of that, we're able to do this now. Do you have any stories you can share?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Quite often as a sales engineer, obviously, one of the big jobs that you have is a proof of value, a proof of concept, and you're going in and often the best thing in the world is you go in and you get a smoking gun. You find something that customer hasn't ever seen before. Well, we've actually just got a new customer, and this is available on our website. We've kind of got video of the customer talking about it. And they had another NDR solution in place. They'd had it for a number of years, but they were just concerned that they weren't seeing everything that they needed to see. They still felt there were some blind spots. And again, sure, they'd get a detection, but they couldn't drill into it. There was no being able to evidence that data. So they heard about the complete visibility message from Corelight. They brought us in, and we did a POV with them. Within 30 minutes of starting the POV, we'd actually uncovered the smoking gun, as it were. Now, my understanding is that it was effectively unencrypted traffic that was containing really important information that was traveling across the network. So, a fairly kind of, on the face of it, a really simple kind of, wow, that just shouldn't be happening. But it was only with that full visibility and that kind of process of just extracting everything, and again, not trying to be too clever, not trying to make magic out of everything, but just sort of saying, hey, here's some stuff here that's of interest. I mean, one of the things we talk about within Corelight is some of the logs that we generate. We have a weird log and an unknown log, and they are literally what they are. This is stuff that's weird. This shouldn't be happening, and this is stuff that we can't even tell you what it is. So, we absolutely get that, where customers go in, they see stuff, and it can be, sometimes it's big things like that. It's really important stuff, that ties back to those kind of the requirements around DORA, GDPR, other stuff. Other times it's just really stuff that's a lot simpler. It's, hey, we've got a team here and they're using a certificate that's got a weak cipher. and it's, you know, it would be prone to be breached or hacked, and it's in our finance department, and that's not a cool thing. So often it can just be stuff that's valuable and seemingly quite small, but actually it's a great insight, because if it ever was if somebody was managed to able to kind of like break that certificate and hack that, then, you know, it could have a huge impact.
Yeah. I love it. I'm going to summarize by look for the known, uncover the unknown, expect the weird, and find the uncool stuff that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And is that a good summary of what you're?
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. Yeah, and you're right. And often it's only the customers that have those insights. You know, that they understand how all of that's hanging together, and that's where the value is with that visibility.
Fantastic, Matt. It's a pleasure chatting with you.
Sure, you too.
And appreciate all you're doing with Corelight, and everybody connect with Matt and his team. Have a good conversation with him and the Corelight folks, and stay tuned for more coming from Infosecurity Europe 26.
Yeah. Thanks. Excellent. Thank you.